NEUVILLETTE, the best DPS in Genshin Impact. Today the best team in Genshin Impact. And not only that, but one of Genshin Impact's best marketing since at least of a month of Mavuika, we have the Mavuika can overcome NEUVILLETTE, and that only does. Comment on NEUVILLETTE's name and let people think about this amazing character. After nerf as Mavuika's DPS, NEUVILLETTE I think she's going to keep fighting for that piece of throne as best team and best DPS of Genshin Impact. How are we? This is Games and Chill, and today we are in a new video in the legendary build of the Sovereign Dragon Hydro, the DPS. The dragon can alone. Today we will see the absolute ceilings. NEUVILLETTE, if the constellations are worth it. I don't have any more of the cone, and I would really recommend the C2. The weapons you already know that apart from his weapon in the battle pass. Well, classist with 5 refinements, there is a debate between the Symphony of Marauders and what? The Amber Prototype? 2 weapons that practically everyone has on your account. When and how can you get to go a living Kali's? Because, specifically in NEUVILLETTE, if there is a situation concrete where the Canlis of Life can add more damage than what the Canlis Hydro adds to it, and this is when it also goes Helmet of Life on most occasions mainly, I will tell you why. And all of the real potential of Genshin Impact's best DPS with capacity and sustainability too. Just the wings of the abyss. So leave a good like, a good ulti of Bennett, subscribe, leave a good comment for the algorithm. Thanks for enjoying and watching the video channel, plus support, because this build will be NEUVILLETTE's last build as we are in this final build phase of fun. Each character until Genshin Impact makes a big change on that same character or his it. Team in NEUVILLETTE also deserves to be the last legendary and definitive build of the up. So as I said, it doesn't cost you anything, totally free, recommends and positions the video, and also just for comment, subscribe with bell and like. You know that you enter once in a while. Day in a lunar blessing, draw and more now coming Mavuika, Sitali, Arlekinos, Sianyan and Dan. All those characters. The protogems, 5 protogems, in Phil's video if I comment that you take advantage of. You are eating today more than ever because it is a long video that you like. Welcome guests to the directs, and we go with the legendary building of NEUVILLETTE. NEUVILLETTE is a Hydro carry and is mainly for Hydro Monkey because it has a lot of multi-hits and Hydro damage. But it can vaporize 1 in 3 hits if you keep a burn on the enemy, and we'll see. How does it work with Mavuika when she arrives? Although I don't think Mavuika NEUVILLETTE will play, or if she does. We'll know there'll be people who do weird things, and then it depends on the community if they set up the team. And takes it as a popular team, but in principle its main role, and above all, that the community has taken as popular is the carry mono hydro, or if electro charged. Talents must be. Brown is his normal attack since in Fontaine came a slightly strange mechanics, and is that first time they brought us constellations of characters that add up the normal attack plus 3. NEUVILLETTE has a constellation C3 that adds the normal attack plus 3 where its charged is reflected. It's their main source of damage, then their elementary ability does good damage. A lot of people raise it because of the importance of the character, but you cannot raise it because the damage that you scale the skill. Elementary is not so interesting, you can leave it elemental at 506 if you don't want to spend resources. And then the ulti if it has a quite generous scaling that does a very big damage, and that according to that team you carry the ulti, specifically can vaporize out of curiosity. I have put 400,000 with this ulti, that is no joke, and it is no small thing, and for many it is more than your Raiden C2 or C3. With a NEUVILLETTE cone is just a curiosity, but I explain it because the ulti can also. It's worth going up, but if you have little resources, 10, 5, 6 or something like that is enough. He wants to take him to heaven. For example, I read another crown. The ulti takes damage, but a single hit. The important thing is the load. Now that it does NEUVILLETTE, because it is very easy with the elemental and with the ulti, with both basically releases Calixes on the ground, these balls that Bars are absorbed with the load, and make the load can be automatically thrown away if you pull. The loaded without having balls, you will start to fill the circle behind the back, and it will take long enough. The correct combo today after many tests in the normal. Characters are usually elemental ulti because the particles of the elemental regenerate the ulti, but as the elementary has 12 seconds of cooldown and he has 18 of cooldown in the ulti and its rotations. 18 in most teams is better by frames and by the speed in which you start DPS. First, throw the ulti, then interrupt as soon as you can the ulti with a load with an elemental eco. Interrupt the animation of the elemental already with the load directly because you will already have the NEUVILLETTE says. It is rare and is very different from other characters, but it's current perfect rotation to save frames, and it's totally minimal what you save yourself, and it's only if you want to be very try-hard. So to do it the other way around and you want it and it will not influence so much is ulti elemental, and then now you load them a lot of text basically for every hit you make of the load you lose life. But when you have chalices in the field and you release the laden one, you absorb the chalices and you heal with each other. You're going to be full of life. You're going to lose for Furina and 4. You're going to be full of life again because you're going to throw 2 loaded by rotation. Last tip for NEUVILLETTE is a little bite, because if you throw 2 loaded, you usually take normally about the 12 seconds you have of elemental cooldown, then sometimes tempts you. A lot to throw another elemental, and a third loaded at the end of the rotation, but this is going to delay the damage, and that last load of NEUVILLETTE, even if you don't notice it very much, doesn't have the buffos so much of the buffos. Harm inflicted from Furina that will have ended as for example from Kazuha the Green Shadow, the elemental damage bonus that lasts 10 and 8 seconds respectively, or the Zillonin bonuses, that will last 15, the bonus of decreased restances, although you already have seconds before entering with NEUVILLETTE. Reducing that counter, or 20, the bonus of the scroll that is perhaps the only one that is held then. Don't throw the third load on Racer and Easy. I don't recommend throwing the third load is Bite. Maybe to finish some Room of the Abyss you say good. He has 3 pixels of life left shot. 1 more load without throwing rotation, and if I go full for the next floor then there is good. It's adaptive, but it's not recommended in something, let's say clean, if it doesn't require the first situation. Ascent talent for every reaction made with Hydro. He wins a maximum stack. 3 stacks each. NEUVILLETTE only activates 2 stacks when you are going to play, for example, Electrocharged Active Thea. Whirlwind, because it usually goes with some Kazuha or something like Hydro, and Electrocharged with which there are 2 stacks, but 3 if you're going to play the Hydro Monkey. There's the Crystallized Shilonen and the... When you have the 3 stacks always on most teams, chan on the cone. That's why. It's so important apart from the breakup retention, because 25 to 60 gives you 35%. Damage inflicted on your main source of damage that are the ones charged. Then basically the Conan gives you 35% additional damage inflicted on the best carry in the game, apart from not interrupting you. Important, the cone and no longer has the first talent ascension and the second talent ascension for each. 1% of life above 30% of its maximum life. NEUVILLETTE gets 0.6 damage bonus. Hydro is. Zay turns life into Hydro damage bonus up to 30%. Here's a limit, let's say. There's not that it's infinite to turn life into Hydro damage bonus, but it gives us a minimum bonus. Hydro damage that, combined with more bonus to no Hydro, for example from Kazuha, can do as 90% of the occasions, and the situation where the Calicid is best is Balinio is better the Calicid. So, don't warm up. Don't make life by default. Don't start with the weird stuff because it doesn't come out. Better item, as sometimes happens with Furina that put Hydro Calixes, or with Raiden that are putty. Do not do strange things by default if you are not Shilonen, C2 Kazuha, with constellations. Furina C2 NEUVILLETTE cone, and a very concrete thing is not going to life. Chalice va Calixidro despite. That talent has a cap but gives it bonus damage hydro, that is 30, which is less than a chalice. But its contribution and its interesting spoiler, you're almost always going to get to this. Almost everyone. It's going to get to this bonus limit to no hydro constellations. Cone gives you resistance interruption. You're not going to be interrupted by the loads, with which this is amazing, and is one of the best. That's why it's recommended, and 35% extra damage on your loads here puts a lot of text with the stacks and data. I don't know how many of the passive blah blah talent gives you one more stack than I explained. Before which, as on almost all teams, you have 2 stacks with this, you will have 3 stacks, and you'll have 35% of additional inflicted damage. C2 adds 42% of critical damage, this I mentioned many times, and if this constellation gave us 40% of additional life, it would hurt us more because this 42% critical damage in NEUVILLETTE is interesting, but usually NEUVILLETTE Chero already. Capias critical ratio capping means you get to a point where you no longer needed more, and if you gain more critical damage in pursuit of another substat, as in the case of NEUVILLETTE life by 100, the base multiplier of the talents. In summary, you lose damage then a constellation. I'd give you 42 critical damage if it makes you do more damage, but it's not an exaggeration. It's not something relevant, is not something important, and is not something worthwhile in exchange for a constellation that could be perfectly a Citroën Chero, a Mavuika Chero, or any other character, so the 0 is from. NEUVILLETTE is more critical damage, but it's not worth it if its percentage life would be infinitely better and the damage would be much bigger. This is the normal attack. +3, which is what I told you about. Charge, this is a savage because it's the loaded +3. This is a damage that makes sense. And then from here, the truth is this is the last 3, if I don't remember correctly. This is a 6 that gives us an absurd amount of multi-hits and makes 2 jets come out of the sides further apart of the loading hits and allows you to have full loading without ending the duration absorbing permanently chalices, with which you don't have to lose those seconds when you land and cast the second loaded, and C4 when I do not receive healing while in use generates a drop. Primigenia, this is going to happen once every 4 seconds is 12 in the field, with which it will be 3. Extra Primigenia drops to combine then with Chicks, and says healing receives healing. I guess it's not that he's cured. I just understand that it's that you have an extra dialer as well. 1 cookie on the other loaded or whatever, don't worry about 1 is Jesus Christ already summed up. It's enough you don't want so much power, it's going to brute you, don't want it to appear very easy, and you're gonna be out there and you're gonna take out no C3 billet or something and you're gonna say it's done. I don't feel like it. I've lost the desire to play Ghost Hunter. 15% year on your load and 36 of probability, and he's the one that best activates this set, even if you don't go with Fiorina, how it works. Always the clock is going to be life, the helmet is going to be life or critical damage, depending on if your weapon gives you life or critical damage, since many play the Amber prototype, and with the prototype Amber that gives you life, is highly recommended to wear a helmet of critical damage, but with the weapons of the critical damage, such as his own weapon or Symphony is recommended, or even the weapon of the passive critical damage helmet of life, and a weapon that gives you life with the Amber prototype or battle pass. That gives you probability helmet of critical damage, because that's what you're going to miss. You're going to miss critical damage. And then let's talk about the chalice. Summarizing the chalice of life, there's a point where it gives you more total damage in NEUVILLETTE, but we go 2.3% some rotations, 1% in some people. Specifically, according to the rest of substats, it reaches up to 3.8%. Such a thing is 3%, and it is only in concrete, and that's when you have, as I say, the best team in NEUVILLETTE, and it's a whale NEUVILLETTE. In what case is that concrete? Because when you have Chironin C2, because it gives you another 45% more life maximum, and all that maximum life is talent-based multiplier when you have Kazuha C2 tuned included, because Kazuha gives you 40% elemental damage with his mastery, but the C2 adds another 200. Kazuha mastery, which turns into 48% elemental damage, plus the 30 that has new billet. You go to 80 practically goes to the elementary year, and when you have Fiorina C2 to activate quickly, the loads of damage inflicted and NEUVILLETTE cone. If you don't have a team like that, your Shironin is Chero your Kazuha. It's Chero your Furin, maybe if it's cone or something, but it's the least that affects this rotation especially. Affects the life of the C2 of Shironin and a basic damage bonus including the C2 of Kazuha because you come in instead of 40 to 48, then NEUVILLETTE live with warm and life, i.e. with triple life, because right now, I lead life hydro life. Because with triple life, I get a coefficient of Q. Damage between I already say 4% and 1%, depending on whether your stats have, because this also depends on the fuel. Higher artifacts, this matters. This makes the change. The truth is that not as I explained in a 90% and a lot of cases where you don't have Shironin C2 Kazuha, C2 even help. Also Furina C2 and NEUVILLETTE cone and gun also counts because the gun also gives you more. Life really doesn't have to warm up, and as I say by default, get the Hydro Chalice in NEUVILLETTE. Because it's the chalice that's going to really stabilize the character. Now you have the helmet. Clear the Calyx 90 and peak % of the hydro cases and a small percentage of the cases life, and I recommend you always test if you can have the opportunity to have both options with a Zimila substats, and substats are always going to be of critical probability up to a limit. Because the set gives you a lot of critical damage, recharge energy that people like Akara don't care. The recharge of energy in friends if you don't throw the last NEUVILLETTE. You lack chalices and don't do power recharge damage. Now I explain when it's 130 and when it's 135 because your gun gets you back. Energy and percentage life in electrocharged equipment previously came to recommend mastery, but today you don't want a master's degree in NEUVILLETTE and much less in Hydro Monkey, which is your best team alone. Ratio per speed probability and damage recharge and life percentage. Life percentage, always remember, which is better than the flat than even when I imagine it is said in general in the community. Genshin's looking for life NEUVILLETTE say, for flat life I had 1,000 helmet out there. Flat life is very good for NEUVILLETTE, as it is not plain to remember that it is very bad both the defense as the attack like life. That's what works NEUVILLETTE. Now the guns, let's talk about the rate. Recharge, that's a point that we'll always love because it is very easy. NEUVILLETTE needs with weapons that give you more energy, like your own weapon that regenerates you 8 points for the prototype. Amber that also regenerates you energy needs about 130 approximately. There are equipments that with 25 you have permavolte, but it is always better to play the safe because remember that always the characters must be minimally constructed to work in all possible combinations. Because the characters in Genshin are improving, they are receiving other characters that change their teams are updating the same equipment, and the goal in general is rotating. Everything is adapting. And NEUVILLETTE in 5.1 started playing the Hydro Monkey, and until then they played Electrocharge and other combinations. Then NEUVILLETTE with his weapon or the Amber that give you some energy too. You have to try to pull out about 130. I have more, but because Kazuha has Ixifos, but I've got 133 on base. You see it here, 33.7. And when you don't have a weapon that gives you energy, mainly his weapon or the Amber prototype, because when you don't have it, you have to try to pull it out then. Above 35, i.e. mainly the weapon of the new battle pass, or the symphony of the saint. Meloderatos, those two weapons have to try to look 35, up 36, 37 would be better even now. We're going to talk about 5 weapons in particular with a bonus track, that's the Axiom. Caught up by critical damage, but Axioma Kagura gives us nothing but critical damage, and to this day is better balanced with other weapons, specifically as with the passive of the Axiom does not really improve. The passive of the Symphony, even if you lose 11 critical damage of the Symphony against the Axiom Kagura. We would recommend the Symphony because 2 of the 3 buffos are going to blow up the damage in NEUVILLETTE positively, because one gives you 96% elemental damage and the other will give you 480 master's degree. That in case of playing Electrocharged or a team where you use that mastery, also the damage is going to shoot. So 11% critical damage in exchange, that it's one of these buffos is worth it, are very. Even with the difference that the Axiom has practically none, and the Symphony there. You have all in your accounts because it appears at any time in any banner, the Symphony. The Melodiators then bonus track the Axioma Kagura is fine, but I'm going to talk mainly of the Symphony because they are in any case the same. Now 5 weapons of NEUVILLETTE, and you forget. Of the 80,000 combinations and recommendations that exist, and we simplify it, 2 weapons completely. Free to play that you all have in the account the Symphony and the Prototype Amber recommendation. The Amber prototype is very free to play because it is a prototype after all, but it is. The least potential damage gives the least ease to weather critical proportion, and the only advantage that the Amber prototype has apart from life dice is that extra healing of Tix Alley. Equipment makes it increase faster. The loads of Fiorina is the only advantage of Amber then. It happens today that who has Fiorina Cero, the Amber helps him because it comes first to more loads. Fiorina for more damage inflicted and feels it does more damage, but as soon as you have Fiorina Cone or C2, especially C2 that you have loads with NEUVILLETTE, literally in 3 seconds since you enter the field with NEUVILLETTE, the advantage of extra healing Amber ticks for damage. Inflicted you lose it, with which Amber is a weapon that gives you a little energy NEUVILLETTE, but less than 10% recharge in its construction and gives you life percent. But there are better weapons, and you can wear a helmet of life that gives you more life, the helmet of life, than the life that gives you the prototype. Amber, with which overused Amber is only good with Fiorina Cero and in beads. Very early, and the potential and roof damage when you better NEUVILLETTE, then the idea is that you're going to improve. I say that you expect to improve is that the Amber prototype will limit you, will make you late. More in improving, and you'll be screwed up character building than the Amber for the more. Little ones, for those who have no other option, Symphony. The Symphony, I recommend it above the Amber. Although the 2 currently attack masters Hydro Monkeys do not serve you, but if the good one, elementary years, at least say a kind of mini hanger, so that in some future you get NEUVILLETTE's gun, and you can calculate that the difference between the 2 guns is 33%. Critical damage that this weapon also gives you more life and more energy, with which is more or less. Easy to pull a kind of image or hanger from a construction with Symphony towards the weapon of the weapon. NEUVILLETTE, as I say, if tomorrow in the future or on this banner when you want to light. Improving NEUVILLETTE, and as I say, this weapon with 55 critical years gives you more potential roof in NEUVILLETTE. With the correct construction, mainly like combined with Fiorina C2, where already the Amber prototype. You need the loads, and now the 3 5-star weapons, good 2 out of 5 stars, and one that is pay to win in quotation marks, because it is that of sacrifice, would sacrifice Forgiveness the Jade. Sacrificial, which is that of the Battle Pass, would be the weapon of the Battle Pass above the he. Symphony Arty, the free-to-play, are the Symphony and the Amber prototype. Then the Battle Pass by. Above the Symphony of the Marauders, above all the more refinement is because the passive, it's going to give you more life. It also gives you a Master's Bufo, but the Master's degree would be for NEUVILLETTE. Electro-charged, however, for NEUVILLETTE Monoidro today, the Mastery gives you exactly the same. I just got pulled out of the account. I just got kicked out of the video. They're trying to hack the CEO. Someone came into the offices to you know what. Well, I was commenting on the guns. Free to play in the pass. The pass is your second best weapon with refinements below. What weapon is situational and is in the middle apart from the comments and the jade? Above the Symphony and the Amber prototype. Prayer lost to the winds. It's a good weapon, and it would be above the 4-star guns because it gives us more critical value and bonus elemental damage than Symphony, and more contribute than Amber. That is by under the Symphony better. But the Lost Prayer is beneath the Jade. So, when you don't have a battle pass, or are you totally free to play and never? You have a pass with which this weapon for you is unworkable. Or you use the pass for another weapon and you didn't. You always buy the pass. That is, in the absence of the Jade. Then Prayer lost above Amber and Symphony, if it came to you by lot in the tent. If not, then it must be sought. And then he Jade with refinements, second best NEUVILLETTE weapon, but it's complicated. Balance because it gives you a lot of probability, plus the set is 36 plus 36 of the set, 72 plus 5 bases, 77 of. I mean, you practically don't have to look for probability in your stat when you're wearing. And above all, his weapon? That is the structure of the weapons of war, NEUVILLETTE, and it's more or less easy. Now the stats. I recharged it before. They have energy like Amber or their own weapon, about 130. Yam 33, then there's the Bufo of Kazuha the goat is active, but well, 33 I have. But well, 30 with his weapon and ember or more of 35, 36, 37, 38. If you have weapons that do not give recharge of energy like all others. Ratio, the critical damage, the Capio I've talked about a lot, is about 250. 245, but the limit is 250, and it would be nice to try not to exceed 250 according to the construction and other external factors, but generally it gives you more damage each substat of. The percentage life that subsides from critical damage above 250 critical damage, and then the you see 43 plus 36 on the set, we put in 80, but if you see that the rest, you can get 85 even to assure more critics. Finally, life. Life is... I've got 45,000 on. Field with hydro consonants, but at least always with NEUVILLETTE in field including Tha, should try to exceed 40,000 with all the active buffos if already capping. The proportion and recharge it with his weapon that gives you more life with the consonants, and with the CT2 of Shilonen that is activated when you put the elemental with the 2 stacks of noctambulism and such, that is not active now. You get much more than 50 and peak 1000 better to better life, and you don't have to care for that, but at least 40,000 of life, the proportion must be close to what you can. With Ember you will not be able, but with Symphony if you will be able to get 75, 230 more or less with Symphony and recharge what I told you. Life is the minimum of 40, and from there if you already cape, proportion and recharge with whatever weapon it is, all to life. Trying to make life crazy already? As you see here, 45,000 at rest and 50, and a lot of 1,000 in field with Shilonen, and the active passive and the rest. That's why I do 120,000 for Tick, 125,000 in fact for elementary Tick. And the teams, they're basically the best team in the game and everyone else. Very easy. Which is the best team in the game? This one. Can you compete with the Mabuka team? Well, they'll be quite alike. Only NEUVILLETTE has, as I say, more sustain in field, and it is also easier to apply NEUVILLETTE's damage against several enemies though. Mabuka is going to be cured with Shilonen and Pand. We'll have the Shield of Sinlali that will be very strong also, with which it will also be defensively. She's not self-healing herself, but to compare the best team in the game with the future potential best team of the game. And after NEUVILLETTE, in the end, there are mainly 2 combinations, which are the most widely used, which are NEUVILLETTE, Fiorina, Kazuha, and before Shilonen, Baiju was used a lot simply because of the overheating and the loads of damage inflicted by Fiorina. Baiju here didn't give you more buffos. Shilonen, of course, brings you much more than Baiju. Kuki instead of Shilonen. That for the same reason gave you more damage ticks. That is to say more healing ticks. That gave you more harm inflicted with Fiorina. And as Kuki applies a hit, yes, a hit no electro, and goes to. And that makes the electrocharge jump ticks between 15 and 20. Continuous ticks, which is also a barbarity of damage to electrocharged equipment of Thi. So basically to this day, the core is these. 3, which is a Hydro Monkey, and then depends on whether you last put Kuki, Shilonen, or Baiju. There were also combinations of electrocharged, since with Fischl, with Baidu, with Ye, even with Xianyun, but not many people have Xianyun instead of Kazuha. But Xianyun allows you to release Kazuha, and as he gives you a heater, to combine with Fiorina, the last character, because that can be Ye, it can be Fischl, it can be Baidu. It can be something that I don't give you any more heating, and there are many more combinations, but mainly that's the Hydro Monkey and Electrocharged. Finally, also in bonus, track a rather strong but not so used equipment, because you prefer to play on the one hand NEUVILLETTE and on the other hand a Hyper Bloom core to make you. The Abyss would be a NEUVILLETTE Hyper Bloom, but it has too many important units to say. Retained, that would be NEUVILLETTE Fiorina, Nahida, and Kuki. And that team also has an absurd damage. Very high, but of course you're not playing a Hyper Bloom in another room anymore, and it hasn't been used that much for that. And those are NEUVILLETTE's teams. Summarizes the breast rotation here in front, watching us and blessing the video so that it had 1 million visits, the most visible building in NEUVILLETTE's history. Until the end, put in the comments how much life you have with NEUVILLETTE in total, how much damage. Political make a little flex down here and make it a way for the community to come and compare their rate. NEUVILLETTE with the people down here and little more. Thank you for all the support, for the love. Thanks for making this viral video. Thanks for giving me the illusion and opportunity to convey to you all the affection for the game and all the knowledge of NEUVILLETTE, and have one of the more views than I'm sure it is. I'm saying it before the build comes out, as long as I record, but I trust it is. A little more. Take care of yourself. Have a very good day, not Chinese ET.